Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to day 13, or pick 13. Pick 13, day 13 of albums that are 50 years old in 2023. We're going back 50 years. We're celebrating 50th birthdays and anniversaries of albums that came out in the glorious year that was 1973. So many great albums. One of the best years for music in general. I picked out my favorite 31. Really tough assignment, right? Because there's a whole bunch of really great albums that aren't going to make the top 31 that I love a lot. It's almost impossible to pick this out. It's like, especially once you got to around like 20 or so. Like the final 11 were really hard when you have 40 that you love that you're trying to choose from. So I've done my best to pick out my 31 favorites, and then you'll get a whole bunch of honorable mentions at the last day of the month on the 31st. So 31 days of January, 31 picks each day. I'm doing mine, you're doing yours. That's how we're doing this. And today, for number 13, this is the sixth studio album from this British band, or from this UK band, I should say, because one of the guys happened to be from Scotland. Released July 13th, 1973 in the UK, July 23rd in the States. Recorded at Morgan Studios in London, England for Chrysalis Records, produced by Terry Ellis and Ian Anderson. Of course, I am talking about A Passion Play from Jethro Tull. Kind of a progressive rock classic, right? I think it gets a little, in the history of Jethro Tull, it gets a little overshadowed by its predecessor, Thick as a Brick, which is kind of very similar in a lot of ways, right? You have basically one long continuous track, okay, which is comprised of a whole bunch of songs kind of like put together in sequence, spread originally across two sides of vinyl, right? Passion Play Part 1 and Passion Play Part 2, just like Thick as a Brick Part 1, Thick as a Brick Part 2. Okay, and very much incorporating all the tropes at the time of, progressive rock, big and bombastic, little tiny bits of folk, little bits of jazz and cabaret and all that sort of thing, right? But a pretty adventurous, musically speaking, album, which at the time the critics absolutely hated, but the fans really loved this a lot, because this particular album was the second number one selling album in a row for Jethro Tull, right? Hit number one on the Billboard charts, number 16 UK, and this was a top 5 in Austria, Canada, Denmark, Germany, Norway, number 9 in Australia. This went gold here in the States, silver in the UK. Of course, on the album, Ian Anderson on lead vocals, flute, acoustic guitar, saxophones. Hey, there's some sax on this album, right? It had that little jazzy element. Martin Barr on electric guitar, John Evan, piano, organ, synthesizer, backing vocals, Jeffrey Hammond, bass guitar, spoken word on The Hair That Lost Its Spectacles. And Barrymore Barlow, of course, on drums and percussion and all sorts of things, glockenspiel, marimba, and all that sort of thing. So again, this is another concept album. Has a lot to do with, a guy who died, and in the afterlife he was exploring his whole life, and it's got a lot to do with the theater and whatnot. They took this out on the road, and this was one of their biggest production ever, and they had, all sorts of physical props and things, and movie projectors going and all that sort of stuff, and you got the dancer. So it's this is not an album. I love this album, but this is not an album that I recommend to newbies to progress to Jethro Tull right off the bat, because this is a pretty dense and serious and very challenging album to initially get into, but then once you do, it's an amazing album. This is an amazing piece of work here, but this is a piece of work. This is, to me, is not like War Child or Aqualung, where you have like all these very different tracks. This is like this kind of sprawling epic that takes you on all sorts of twists and turns. I love the mix of the sax on here, which gives it a different flavor. Mixed with the flute, there's passages of thunderous, guitar rock. There's very interesting kind of jazzy, fusion-y, proggy type passages as well. Some gorgeous yet somewhat mysterious vocal lines and passages from Ian in this. He has a great way of weaving vocal melodies together, and I absolutely adore this album. I think it's really good, and I will say, in kind of closing here, if you've never heard the original recordings that were a Passion Play. So in other words, the band went into the Chateau. I can never say. I don't speak French, but they went into the recording studio, that famous recording studio in France, and they recorded what was originally going to be the Passion Play album, or whatever they were going to title it at the time. And they recorded the whole thing, and then they didn't really like the way it sounded. They weren't happy with the studio, so Ian decided to scrap the entire project. They went to a different studio, and they recorded what would eventually become a Passion Play, and it's very different. But there are lots of similarities. So if you go and you listen to the Chateau Disaster tapes, which are included on Nightcap, all right, although the songs that are included on the Nightcap collection have been touched up and added lots of flute, because the original recordings didn't have a ton of flute. Okay, and it's a really heavy album. The way it was originally recorded, really heavy. Then on the Passion Play box set, okay, that came out a few years back, there you have the original recordings without the added flute and other things that Ian did in the studio to kind of sweeten up the sound for Nightcap. So in essence, you basically have 3 versions of Passion Play that are available out there. You have what they actually released at the time. You have the original version of it, which is on the Passion Play box set, and then you have the kind of retouched up 1991 or whatever year Nightcap came out on the Nightcap collection. So if you're interested at all in a Passion Play, I highly recommend you listen to all 3, because they're all very different from each other. And as much as I love this, the Nightcap stuff is just absolutely tremendous. I mean, some of those songs are just epic and heavy and just highly progressive, and just really interesting riffs from Martin Barr, and great little acoustic sections, and lovely flute and Hammond organ. Just, man, the musical ideas that were going on with the band, and specifically coming from Ian around this time, and I'm talking about Thick as a Brick as well, just absolutely immense. Can you tell I really like this album? Yeah. So anyway, this is my number 13, or my day 13 pick, right? It's not no number. None of these are in any kind of order. So let us know what you think of a Passion Play down in the comments below, as well as your pick for day 13 here. And visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. Please do hit the like button before you leave as well. And down below, if you care to make a channel donation, we have the links to our Ko-Fi page below, as well as our merch page, where you can get all sorts of cool Sea of Tranquility stuff, like this wonderful Sea of Tranquility in the Prague seat, or Prague shirt with the great space scene and the big logo. I love this logo. It's just so big and bright and colorful, and just catches your eye. So you can get this and many other styles down at the link below. So please go investigate that as well. And we'll see you tomorrow for day 14. What do we got coming up? Let's see here on the channel. Of course, we got Martin Popoff back in the house at the Fun House today. That's coming up later this morning. We also have tomorrow the UK Connection. All right, we're on the every other week schedule for all of our panel shows. So the guys in the UK Connection and myself will be back tomorrow as we rank the songs on a classic album. That classic album is the debut from Wasp. That's coming up tomorrow. And then Sunday, we've got ranking the albums. And we are doing, we got a little panel put together, and we're going to be ranking our top 10 albums from the great Cheap Trick. The great Cheap Trick. So that's coming up on Sunday. And then we start the week all over again. We've got, next week is Hudson Valley Squares on Monday, Monsters Den on Thursday. So that's coming up next week. So thanks for watching, everybody. I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.